Hi guys, welcome back. I once again am trying like a different type of video as I go through this YouTube journey, just experimenting with different types of content, seeing what you guys really resonate with. So today we're going to do just like a general Q&A, kind of similar to the Sound Off episodes that me and Stephanie do. I put a question box up on my Instagram story, and if you don't follow me, go follow me over there. And you guys submitted some questions and things that you were curious about. So I'm just going to chit chat, answer them, and I think it'll be a fun time. Some of them are like kind of juicy, and some of them are things that I haven't really ever opened up about. So I feel like this could be fun. Okay, I don't know if we should start with like a hard, juicy one or if we should like ease into it. Okay, you know what? Let's just dive right in. Someone wrote most unhinged thing you had to take out of an episode. So obviously they're referring to a She's All Batch episode, which is my podcast that I do with my co-host Stephanie. If you're here and you don't know about that podcast, oh my God, hi, how did you find me? But I'm figuring most of you guys know me from that. So most unhinged thing. I'm trying to think of like what I can say. I will say that, I'll say two things. I'll say that there have been a handful of things that I can think of off the top of my head. I obviously can't flat out say what they were, but they are things that both Stephanie and I feel like have been really bummed to have to take out because I think they would have been like going viral, earth-shattering, like crazy confessions. But, you know, I think it's a balance, right? I think we have to kind of ride that line of making sure our guests feel comfortable with us and that they trust us. And if at the end of the interview, if they've already been really generous with their time and with their other answers, and they explicitly say like, hey, there was this one thing that I really just like wish could be removed. Could you please take it out? Like 9 times out of 10, we're gonna do it. There have been a handful of those where we've been like, oh shoot, like I wish they hadn't maybe like caught that, or maybe sometimes we've realized that like there have been a few times in the past where someone has said something that's like really, really groundbreaking, and both of mine and Stephanie's reactions are like, oh my God, okay, this is gonna be on Us Weekly. And we've learned over the years to like tailor those reactions in the moment, because I think as soon as we react, then the guest all of a sudden is like, oh wait, shoot, like should I have not said that? And then they start to second guess it because, you know, they're being generous with their time and they want to be on the podcast and they want to share their story. But I think most of them are not trying to have some viral headline written about them. So that's something we over the years have tried to manage. And I think we've also tried to, of course, we always say at the top of our interviews with our guests before we hit record, like, you know, anything you say, if you really want to take it out, we can edit it out. But we have been, I wouldn't say like not saying that, because we do always say that, but I think we just kind of like now say it at the top and just kind of like let it ride and finish the interview, versus I feel like maybe in our more green days, we would be like, oh yeah, like, are you sure you want that in there? Or what do you think about this? Yeah, like no worries, we can take it out. And we would almost like suggest the things, which is like kind of shooting us in the foot, you know? So it's definitely been a learning curve over the years. There have been things that we've had to, you know, talk people through and be like, look, I really don't think it's going to be as big a deal as you think it is. Like that actually just adds more context to the story. Like, come on, please trust us. Like, please leave it in. So there have been examples like that. I will say this was one of our first ever interviews. I'm not going to say who, but like, I don't know, go through, I would say maybe first 5. And this person was very all over the place and very off topic. And so this is one of our first interviews. So I think we didn't really know what to expect. And Stephanie was the one who kind of called it out and was like, I think this is like low key, like kind of unlistenable. Like, I think we need to like heavily chop around this and all these things where she goes off on different tangents. Oh, there you go. You know, it's a girl at least, but a lot of our guests, I feel like, are more girls than boys. She was just kind of like, you know, all these times where she goes off on different tangents, like let's cut around that so we can keep it concise and keep the recording on track, because it was so hard in the interview to keep her on track. So in that sense, I would say maybe the interview was like 50 minutes and we probably chopped half of it. And that's what you guys ended up hearing. So that's like the one little bit of tea I will give. There obviously have been like pretty significant bombshell moments that we had to cut, but obviously they're cut for a reason. There's also things where, and we've talked about this on our podcast as well, that like at the top of the interview, they'll be like, hey, don't ask us about this. And so we just don't. It's a balancing act, right? At the end of the day, we want people to feel open and want to share with us. And I think we get a lot of really juicy tea because people feel really comfortable with us. So sorry, I had to pause for a second because my dryer was going off, but we kind of have to ride that line. What else we got here? I guess I kind of covered this one too. There's another question that says, I've always wanted to know the questions, topics guests wouldn't let you ask. Yeah, there are plenty. I don't think I can really say much more than that, right? This one's just kind of a funny, silly one, but I feel like it covers both of my worlds. It says, Aaron Tveit in chess gives major Greg Grippo vibes. I never thought about that, but you are so right. They do honestly look really similar. I feel like it's really all in the hair. I'll put a little side by side here. Can you tell us more about your day job? How do you balance both? Yes, I can. I mean, I've talked about this on the podcast. You guys know I have a 9-to-5 job as well as the podcast that I do. It's not easy to balance both. I think, it's a lot of really early mornings and it's a lot of really late nights. I will say this though. I think if something is important enough to you and you're passionate about it and you want to get it done, you will find the time. Like the excuse that there's just like, oh, I can't have a side hustle or pursue something else because I work from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. It's like, okay, well, there are other hours in the day and it's just really about prioritizing and time management. Maybe Tuesday night, you don't need to go to that happy hour with your friends. You can sit and record with Stephanie as I do sometimes. Or if we need to get our recap up and I need to be in the office at 9, I guess we're doing it at 7 a.m., right? So it's definitely a balancing act because I have a job and Stephanie has her son. She's a full-time stay-at-home mom and, she has to attend to him. We both have difficult schedules and are balancing a lot. So sometimes that's hard too, that it's hard enough for me to find the time outside of my job to record, but then it's aligning that time with when she's also able to record. So it's not easy, but I think if you're passionate enough about something and you really want to grow and build a business, that's kind of what you have to do. Unless you're independently wealthy and you don't have to work and can just casually build your dream business. Anyone who wants to start something on their own kind of has to play double duty for a while, and it's hard, but I'm just hoping that in the end, it will be worth it. I've worked really hard for 4 years and I think we're in a really good place with the podcast. Of course, I would love to get to the point where I can fully dedicate all of my time to this, but that's on you guys to share our episodes more so that we grow more. I'm really hoping that next year with Taylor Frankie Paul as The Bachelorette will be kind of a breakthrough year for us into more mainstream, but that all depends on you guys. Shameless plug. Not that I'm begging people to listen to our podcast, but you know what I mean? It's just kind of sometimes out of our hands. And I think sometimes it's tough because we're in such a niche. And that's why we have branched out so much to sound off and just talking about personal stuff, because we don't want to be so beholden to not only The Bachelor and The Bachelor franchise's schedule, but also Bachelor franchise's ratings, right? If no one is interested in this season of Golden Bachelor, we don't want that to affect our business in a really significant way. It's hard. I do think though too, something that is very much kind of overlooked or undervalued is that while it is really difficult for me to manage 2 jobs at the same time, I do feel though, because both jobs are in entertainment, that one always kind of informs the other. And so in that sense, I do think that both kind of make me better at the other. I don't really talk a lot about what I do for Peacock, but I could describe it as content curation and program scheduling. And a lot of that is looking at performance data, what shows are popping, what things can we put together that would create a good user experience. And so I find that some of that data analytics and understanding of consumer habits does inform the way I think about how we do our podcast too. Cause we're obviously looking at the analytics on that side too and seeing what's popping with different episodes that we do. So all experience I think is good experience. And just because something isn't necessarily your main career, I think just learning as much as you can about different facets of your industry just makes you a better worker in general, if that makes sense. My friend Haley wrote this. She wrote, "What are you most excited for in London? Hee hee." I don't think I've mentioned this on the podcast, but we'll probably talk about it next week because we're doing one more episode before Thanksgiving. But I'm going to London for Thanksgiving, that whole week there. I do have a friend named Haley who lives there, but it's not really like a trip to fully visit Haley. I kind of booked it on my own and saw it as a solo trip, but then obviously knew I would be catching up with her and spending some time with her. And so I guess, would you call that a full solo international trip? I don't know. I think it's like kind of somewhere in between, but this is my first ever like solo, whatever you want to call that, trip outside the country, which I am really excited about. I initially wanted to go to France for some reason. I don't know. I just like had a craving to go to France. I haven't been anywhere in Europe since before the pandemic. So it's definitely been a while. And I feel like the pandemic just kind of like obviously put everyone's travel routines through a whirlwind. And then it's been kind of hard for me to get back on track in prioritizing travel, which is crazy because like I love traveling. I love like learning about new cultures and like talking to different kinds of people and just like seeing architecture and art. Like I love it so much. But yeah, I just think it was something over the past few years that just kind of fell to the back burner. So I really wanted to prioritize going on a trip. It's really hard though, if you're not in a relationship, to like round up friends who are all kind of on the same page as you as far as travel, as far as like budget, where you want to go, who has the time off from work, etc. So I just kind of pulled the trigger and did it. Yeah, like I said, I was initially looking into France. I was like craving France for some reason, but I figured maybe better for my first solo trip to kind of dip my toe into it and go a place where I can actually speak the language and converse with people. So London feels very comfortable to me. I've been there a few times. I obviously speak English, and it was cheaper to go than France anyway, just at this time of the year. So I was like, you know what? F it. And I have my friend Haley who lives there. So it'll be a little bit mix of solo adventures and then maybe like catching up with her to go get dinner. We might do an activity like one day when she has off work and stuff. It's a short trip. It's only 5 days, but I'm definitely going to be vlogging and chatting a lot about it. I plan to see a lot of stuff in the West End. So expect full travel vlog, expect West End theater reviews, like one for each show I see. Maybe I'll break up the travel vlog into like a couple different vlogs depending on what I end up doing. I'm considering maybe taking a day trip to Bath, although I just kind of have to see. It's only 5 days, so I don't know if that's like over ambitious, but yeah, I'm excited. And maybe you guys can like relate to being the age that I am and wanting to travel, but finding it difficult for all the reasons that I just listed. What else? Okay, maybe I'll do one more because I feel like this one has potential to be kind of juicy. Tell us about your past relationships. Oof. Yes, that's another thing that I don't really talk about on the podcast literally at all / ever. Mostly because these days there's not really a lot to say. I haven't been in like a real relationship where like, you know, we're fully together. They know my family. They know my friends. We say I love you since my early 20s. I'm trying to think. So my last like serious boyfriend was my boyfriend we dated in college. We met in college and then continued to date in our early 20s outside of college. And then we broke up, I guess, 2017. So it's 2025 now. So it's been, what is that? 7 years, 8 years even. Since I've been, I guess actually now that I think about it, I think we broke up around like fall time 2017 and it's fall now. So yeah, it's been about 8 years since I've been in like a legitimate relationship. Yeah, I guess what I'll say on all of that is, so I was in that relationship. Nothing bad happened. It was actually probably one of the healthiest breakups I've ever been through. It just kind of got to the point where, you know, like we started dating when we were really young and we were in college, and then, you know, we were together in our early 20s kind of figuring out our lives and our careers, and just kind of realized that we didn't have as much in common anymore. We just really had kind of grown apart and we wanted different things out of life. And, you know, those are conversations you don't have when you're starting to date someone in college and you're young. But, you know, as you start settling into your adult lives, you kind of come to the realization that you want different things. And that's just kind of what happened. And I think there was, some tensions there as we both, I think, kind of realized we wanted different things, but no one really wanted to like admit it or accept it because we knew what that meant. So, there was some tension and just kind of like not seeing eye to eye for a few months. And then we eventually broke up. Super healthy breakup though. We don't really talk, but have nothing but good things to say about him and wish him the best in whatever he's doing in his life. But yeah, so then after that, I got into like, I would call it a rebound. It's what started as a rebound relationship from that, because that relationship was about 3 years, my longest relationship. And I quickly started kind of seeing someone else, but we had both come out of really long-term relationships. So we were very much on the same page of not wanting anything serious. It was just something fun and it was a distraction. But I think when you don't have like clear communication and clear boundaries around what that really looks like, it just slowly slipped into what could have just been like a fun fling rebound thing. All of a sudden you blink and you're like, oh my God, we've been like doing this and like kind of acting like boyfriend, girlfriend for like a year plus, but no one, like, you have always been very upfront that you don't really want to get into anything serious. However, we've been now doing this for like a year. So now like I feel attached and like there is something here, but we've never defined it. And so it just got really like messy really quickly. I think because, at least I'll speak for myself on my end, I didn't really know how to even like identify what my needs were and communicate them. I just kind of went along with what this was, because initially it worked for me, and then like it very slowly didn't, because the more you spend time with someone, you get attached and you get feelings. But the reality of the situation never changed. She always had said up front he didn't want to be in a relationship with me. So you're like doing it. And without checking in with yourself and being like, is this really what I want? Should I take a step back just because it's comfortable and easy? Then you just end up in this like cycle, and it got really messy and ended really badly. And so that was maybe like a year and a half after that. And that one really messed me up. And so then the pandemic happened. That was maybe like a year or two off from meeting new people, because right before the pandemic was when I moved from LA back to New York. So not only was I like really starting, it's weird because like I wasn't really starting over. I'm from New Jersey. I have a lot of friends in New York, but in a way I didn't really have a life in New York. And as soon as I got here, everything shut down. I didn't have those like pre-established routines and like big groups of friends. So that happened and kind of like threw me for a little bit of a whirlwind for like a year or two. And then, slowly but surely the world started getting back to normal. And I have dated people since, but I think, and maybe you guys can relate to this, like the apps are so hard, and I find it like really hard to meet new people in general. And I'm the kind of person that like, I really need to know someone to be romantically interested in them. Like I need to know their personality and like their personality. And so that's why the apps are really hard for me. Like I can see a picture of someone and be like, yes, that is an objectively hot man, but I don't like want to sleep with him unless I know them and know their personality. So in that sense, the apps have always been really hard. So it's been a tough couple years of trying to meet people. I do have people that I see where, I think we're very upfront with each other that we're not really long-term compatible, but we get along really well and still spend time together. But as far as like anything serious, there hasn't really been since literally my college/early 20s boyfriend, which is kind of crazy when you say that out loud. But yeah, so I would like to maybe be in another long-term relationship. I think I have really complicated feelings and opinions about marriage just based on some of the way my family structures have unfolded over the years. And again, that is another conversation for another video. But I do think at this point in my life, at 32, going to be 33 in April, I am open to wanting a more like stable long-term partnership. But I'm not quite sure like where to find it. And like, I hate to say this also too, but like, I feel like I have a lot going for me. I'm a cute girl. I've had a lot of success with like this business that I've built and my career. And it's just also hard to meet people who are kind of on that level too and are just as ambitious as me and want those same things. So yeah, I don't know. I already feel like I've totally overshared way more than I would normally share on the podcast. So I guess let me know if you guys relate to any of that. That's kind of where I'm at this moment. Hopefully you guys appreciate the vulnerability and it doesn't come back to bite me in the ass. But I feel like I didn't say anything that crazy. Like that's just genuinely like what's been up with me for the past few years and kind of how I feel. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we should talk about. All right, I'll do one more and then we'll wrap it up. This one is, what did you do before you started the podcast with Stephanie? Amazing question. I think you guys know I was a theater kid all of my life. I literally thought potentially that I would go to college for theater and pursue that professionally. I didn't. I ended up studying film and TV at the communication school at Boston University, which is getting a lot of buzz these days because Alex Cooper had said to Angie Cohen on Call Her Daddy, like they both went to BU and they kind of called that out. And I'm like, wow, what amazing alums from Boston University. I was actually there when Alex Cooper was there too, but I think she's a few years younger than me, so I didn't know her obviously, but we were in the same school. So I went to BU for film and TV in the communication school, but then I moved to LA after college and wanted to pursue acting stuff. So I did some sketch comedy. I did some theater out there. I did some short films. I had a commercial agent, but never booked anything. Just like the classic LA experience. And then by the end of my time there, I was in LA for like 5 years. I got Actors Equity and SAG-AFTRA, which was very game-changing. If you guys are familiar with how the industry works, like the Actors Equity thing was huge for me because then once I moved to New York right after that, you can just book an appointment to go to an audition. You don't have to be doing crazy things like these non-union girls who are like waking up at 3-4 in the morning, putting your name on a list, sitting out on the cold streets of New York, waiting to be seen. And like maybe at 6 p.m. when no one else is there anymore, they'll like let you sing legitimately 8 bars of your song. And then they'll be like, okay, bye. Thank you. I don't know how anyone like performs and like gives a good audition in those circumstances. So I got Actors Equity. And right before the pandemic was auditioning a lot. I would like go to my day job and like book auditions, would leave during my lunch break, go sing my little songs, come back. I did that for like 2 months. Then in March, the pandemic happened and the whole world turned kind of upside down as far as like in-person auditioning and theater and performing. And that's when I kind of leaned into podcasting. I had done some hosting and coverage of The Bachelor when I was living in LA before. I hosted a similar Bachelor chat show on Pluto TV, which was where I was working at the time. They allowed me to also host a show. And so I had experience doing that. And that's when I leaned into podcasting during the pandemic because I really just felt like I needed a creative outlet. So I continued to podcast with this other company. And I think I was just getting really frustrated with trying to balance the podcasting. And I also still was working a full-time job. And I was doing it all myself, which was really hard. And I was getting really frustrated because I was like, I know I'm making great content, but I'm not able to like put the time and effort into like the marketing aspects. I don't have much of a platform to really get it out there to people. Like I'm just going to give up. And then I literally did give up for like a month or two. And then that's when Stephanie called me. And we had known each other because I think back when I was doing that podcast, maybe a year or two prior, I had interviewed her because she had the She's All Batch Instagram account. At that time, it was mainly a meme account. And I interviewed her as like the girl behind She's All Batch to just recap an episode with me. And she reached out to me because she has her platform, She's All Batch, and was interested in turning that into a podcast, but she didn't really know how to do that. And I was someone who had a podcast and she wanted to kind of talk about that. So we had this infamous phone call that we talk about all the time, that like this 45-minute phone call where by the end of it, we're 2 strangers and we were like, wait, should we go into business together? We were literally 2 strangers going into business together, which is crazy when you think about it, but it turned out well. And then we started the podcast together. And the fact that there was 2 of us to pick up the load just like was game changing. Like it really is so hard to do it all yourself. I don't know if either of us could do it on our own. So we had two of us, and the rest is history. You guys know how She's All Bach podcast went. Since then, I have been trying to get back into performing in New York when I can. Sometimes I produce shows at 54 Below and perform in some cabarets there. I've been taking a lot of voice lessons because I want to get my voice back to like where I know it can be, and maybe audition in the new year. So I kind of have my hand in a bunch of things. I am happiest when I am doing a lot and being really creative and singing and performing and doing my podcast and putting things out there. I just I need it to feed my soul. Like I really don't feel like myself when I'm not doing those things. So just going to continue doing that. But that's kind of like the general overview of my career trajectory and how we've gotten here. Thank you for watching. If you guys have made it this far, I really appreciate just having the opportunity here to share more about myself and open up a little bit more. I think this has been so far, I haven't been doing this on YouTube that long, but this has been a really fun outlet to just have this be like my space where I can do whatever I want and share whatever I want in a way where there's just no pressure, because, when we're on the podcast, we are doing a Bachelor podcast and we have things we need to cover, and it's very much a business, where this is just kind of a place where I feel like I can share myself with you guys in a really authentic way. So thank you so much for continuing to watch. There's definitely going to be more to come, because today's Saturday and Wicked comes out on Thursday. So I'm going to be vlogging, going to the theater with my friends, talking about my experience growing up with Wicked and why it means so much to me. I did do a video like that for our She's All Bach Patreon, but we don't do Patreon anymore. And if you missed it or if you didn't subscribe, I'll do something similar again, because I think explaining my history with this story explains why I'm so obsessed with it. I'm not a freak, I promise. And then I obviously will be doing a full review of Wicked for Good. And so that's kind of the plan for next week. And then the following week, I go to London, which will be great content opportunities. So there's a lot down the pipeline. I'm really excited to continue to do this. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe, swipe up, sound off in the comments below, literally all the things. But actually, if you're going to do one of those things, sound off in the comments below, because I love hearing from you guys. You guys really liked commenting on my Queen of Versailles review, and I love chatting about that experience with you guys. But subscribe. I need more subscribers. Okay. It really helps a lot, I think, to push the videos out too, because I think YouTube prefers pushing out people who have high engagement. So do all the things, help a girl out. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye, bitches.